These are the men of the 21st Battalion 2nd Division of the Australian Imperial Force just a few days after fighting in the Hamel Offensive. The Hamel Offensive was the first Australian-led operation of World War I. Front and centre amid the haul of captured weapons and equipment is a 7.7cm Model 96 field cannon. After a long life in the outdoors in Ararat, Victoria as a public display, it was almost sold for scrap metal before being rescued by a collector. A few decades later, it was acquired by Rodney Bellars and partially restored. After his passing, the Australian Armour and Artillery Museum has taken up the mantle of restoring this incredible piece of history, and it's up to Al to get it back to what it might have looked like over 100 years ago. It's been sandblasted, primed, and delivered to the workshop. As you can see, wherever there's been area for water to lay in, this is where the most damage has occurred. Al is no stranger to World War I guns, and this one is in much better condition than some of the others he's worked on. But the significance behind this piece makes it very important to preserve as much as possible. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Al's full restoration of the Hamel gun. In order to preserve as much original material as possible, Al is trimming back the rusted parts and replacing it with new steel. Normally, the boys draw the replacement parts in CAD and get them laser cut at our steel supplier, but Al is old school and prefers to make it all by hand. It takes a bit longer, but the handmade finish is precisely what makes this restoration so special, and in a lot of ways, more authentic. As good as new, and we only lost this tiny strip off the bottom. But the rest of the trail is going to be a little bit trickier than this.
Try and save that and bring that down through there to there, so I'm not disturbing all this. We'll just cut a piece to go in there, and then we'll put the skinny wheel through there and cut that out.
These modern nuts and bolts are a remnant of the partial restoration the gun's already undergone. They'll be removed, and Al's going to be putting in something a little bit more authentic a bit later on. The material thickness and bends out of this box section happen to perfectly match the trail of the gun.
Right along that edge all the way. Make a pattern up, then I'll just get me bit of flat plate, put that on, cut it out. And that's got to come forward. But I might put a little bit of heat on that and just tap it around a bit. We'll grind all that off.
So grinding now?
Yeah.
The trail spade is too hard for us to replicate, and we don't want to cut any more original material out of it, so instead, Al decides to use a 2-part epoxy to bog in the holes. By the time it's sanded and painted, it will look as good as new and be as hard as steel.
Good old water.
That's the secret, hey?
Yep.
After curing, it'll still need a bit of sanding to finish it off, but it's miles better already compared to what it was. The next thing Al got to work on were these side guards for the crew ride positions.
We've made up the side panels, which are all pretty well much the same as what originally was on it. Basically what we're going to do now is just all these little clips I've made up, we'll put them over the side, pop rivet them on. These are all original frames and there's no holes in them, so they had to be clips.
Had to have been clips.
Yep.
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 As you can see, the trail suffered badly from water damage while it was on display as a public monument. This was the part that has already been partially restored, but it's missing quite a few critical details, chiefly the top trail cover and stowage box lid.
This will be cut basically across there, around, go back up. That's just a rough idea how it's got to happen. This one will be cut across there. We measure there, and that'll come down on the angle like that to follow the profile of the chassis, and that'll come down like that, same thing, right? We have to cut a hole in there like that. That gives you access into the toolbox.
Also in the workshop is another FK96, which Al is restoring at the same time. Luckily, lots of the parts missing on the Hamel gun are actually present on this one, making measuring a lot easier.
235 on this end, 383. Pretty close. Happy with that? Shall we right here? Should be right. Need a bit of light under it.
It's a bit tricky to make out, but here Al's marking in the holes for the top cover so he can drill them in.
Yep, got all them. Savers, mate.
Now to give the cover its distinctive shape.
Look at that.
If you don't have a fancy tool for it, chances are you've got some junk lying around in your shed that will do the job just as well.
That's the angle we want. Yeah. And that one. Yep, that's better. Okay. Because I've got that edge there, that's another mil and a bit. So I've got to go in here about, a good 3-4 mil. Yeah.
Since the Hamel gun has so much documented history, we decided to use some original parts that it was missing off the other gun, like this toolbox lid. Al will make a pattern for whatever we use and recreate it so that it still looks relatively complete.
Just like that. Yeah. Getting there.
You'd think it was laser cut in a steel factory. Al's work is very clean. The original cover has an upward lip pressed into it to stop water running into the toolbox. We don't have any equipment to do this, so Al is going to bend and weld in a thin strip to replicate one.
Yeah, beautiful. Doing that one there.
Rivets are a complete nightmare, so Al has welded in the heads of these bolts to give the impression of rivets while keeping things much easier to work with.
Under there. There you go.
The original seats have rusted and rotted away a long time ago, but we do have a surviving example in the museum which Al has meticulously copied. As you can see, the two seats are different shapes. The one on the left faces forward and is for the gunner to operate the sight and lay onto targets. The one on the right faces the breech and is for the loader to load and extract shells. For maximum comfort, both seats were fitted with hard timber cushions.
They want them out of there.
The original lower shield has been lost to time, either during the battle or was stolen when it was a public monument. This will be yet another piece we take from the other gun and refit here. First, the old hinges have to come off to be fixed up.
Two. Inside one. Yep. Yeah, ready.
It's going to come off, Alan.
Should be off there.
Yep.
Find that now.
Now to take the shield off the other gun. Al will make a pattern of this for recreation when the time comes. Al's now added the hinges of the original Hamel gun to this shield. Now he's making the fake rivets. Because these are seen on both sides, Al has also shaped the nuts to look like part of the rivet as well. To complete the look, he fills the top of the nut in with weld and then grinds it over, giving it a nice round shape. Wheelwrights are a bit of a lost trade, but just a few hours away is Tony from Wongabel Wheelwrights. We have original hubs, some damaged spokes, and a set of schematics for the wheel assembly. With this information, Tony was able to reconstruct the wheels for our German field guns. He starts by getting the rough shape of the spokes in the lathe, but then has to finish them by hand. Then the rims are painstakingly made and fitted. Then the make or break moment, getting the steel tyres on. The wheel assembly is fixed to this concrete pad, and the perfectly round rolled steel tyre is expanded by heating it up red hot. Then it's dropped onto the wheel, cooled and shrunk on. There are no shortcuts here, and each step of the process is fraught with the danger of ruining everything. Each wheel is a work of art consisting of hundreds of hours of labour, and it really shows. They'll need to be oiled every 6 weeks for a year to ensure that they do not dry and split. We've finally taken delivery of our first set, so before we paint the gun, Al and Jess try them on.
I think that's it.
There's no doubt about it, it looks fantastic, but it's just a German World War I field gun, so what? Why go to all this trouble and effort? It's not like they're really rare, the museum has heaps of them. So what makes this gun so special? After a huge offensive in 1918, assaulting German units had broken the Allied lines all across the front, making several large salients in strategically important locations. It was one of these salients in the region of a small village called Le Hamel that was selected as the scene for the birth of true combined arms warfare. It was also where our gun was deployed. The village of Hamel was strategically important for a few reasons. Firstly, it was situated near a ridge that offered excellent observation over the surrounding countryside, making it an ideal position for artillery. Both sides recognised the importance of controlling this high ground, and as a result, the area around Hamel had already seen fierce fighting throughout the war. The town was located near the Amiens-Peronne Road, a major transportation artery that was vital for supplying troops and equipment to the front. Capturing and holding this road was crucial for both sides, as it allowed the movement of men and material more efficiently. The Germans in particular were determined to hold onto this road, as it was their main supply route to the front. And finally, it was located at the southern end of a bulge in the Allied line. If the Germans were able to push through this bulge, they could potentially outflank the entire Allied position in the sector. Holding Hamel, therefore, was critical for the Allies to maintain the defensive line and prevent the Germans from making any further significant gains. And so it was that General Sir Henry Rawlinson, commander of the 4th Army, gave the meticulous Australian General John Monash the order to seize the area with the Australian Corps, with some smaller American units in support. General Monash used his incredible powers of innovation and organisation to execute this spectacular offensive. He insisted on advanced coordination between infantry and artillery and tanks, parachute drops of medical supplies and rifle ammunition to resupply advancing soldiers, weeks of combined arms training, sustained conditioning fire on enemy positions in the lead-up of the operation, and the inclusion of more portable Lewis guns in infantry companies, hugely increasing their firepower, to say nothing of the unprecedented logistical feat of arranging a delivery of hot meals up to the front line during the fighting. Our gun was the first captured during the operation by the 21st Battalion's 6th Brigade. Their task was to secure the southern flank of the main attack. What made this operation even more extraordinary was that all the first day's objectives were achieved only 3 minutes over the 90-minute allocation. We're not entirely sure where exactly this gun was positioned, but we do know from surviving accounts that it was situated somewhere on the left flank of the 21st Battalion's line of advance and likely firing directly onto the advancing tanks and infantry. With a fresh coat of paint and the wheels newly put back on, Al and Jono fit the tools and accessories. Now Al, Jono and Daz limber up onto our artillery forklift and carefully tow it across to the museum. Now Al has seen to its safe delivery, he signs it over to the care of the museum crew.
Now it's on you there, Jace.
That's it. Edit that.
Yeah. I'm keeping it in.
There was some debate over what markings to put onto the gun, until it was finally decided to apply the same ones that were put on after its capture at the Battle of Hamel. Australian colour patches and unit symbols are a fascinating subject and something that our assistant manager Jason takes very seriously. The rising sun over the number 2 that he's currently applying denotes a gun or vehicle belonging to the 2nd Division Australian Imperial Force. On the left is the unit colour patch. The shape of the patch denotes the division. In this case, the diamond represents the 2nd Division. The base colour denotes the brigade. The 6th Brigade is red. And finally, the colour of the top half of the diamond denotes one of the 4 battalions that made up the brigade. The 21st Battalion is the premier fighting unit in the 6th Brigade, and so the top colour is black. Small colour patches were usually worn on a soldier's uniform and enabled easy identification of friendly units. The soldiers of the 21st Battalion proudly painted their mark on this gun. Jason has restored it to as close as possible to what it would have looked like and as close to where it would have been marked on that fateful day in the summer of 1918. And with that, the gun is complete. The damage on the middle and lower gun shields appear to be consistent with shrapnel fragments, likely the result of one of the creeping barrages that covered the advance of the infantry and tanks. We'll never know for sure, but what we do know is that after becoming dangerously close to being scrapped and lost to time, it will now stand as a permanent monument to this remarkable feat of Australian ingenuity and a testament to the skill and workmanship of Alan Allmuller.
Probably a privilege to work on a gun like this with so much history. And every day in your life you get to work on something that's been captured in World War I and returned to Australia.
How do you feel when you look at that photo with all those blokes there standing kind of where we are?
Yeah, well, gives you a bit of an eerie feeling, I suppose. you know, to think that they were over there fighting a war and those sort of conditions, and here we are today running around the free country. No, it's been a privilege to work on it. Yep.
But Al doesn't rest on his laurels. Oh no. Instead, he dives right into the next project. That's all we have time for today. Join us next Wednesday for your weekly tank restoration fix. So until then, I'm Kurt from Oz Armour. I'll see you on the next one.